A local judge removed from the bench for violations. The Ohio Supreme Court saying he was running a debtor's prison. Dan DeRose is here to explain the accusations and the removal. This does not happen often at all.
No, it does not. The order came out today that he was to be removed immediately. We're talking about the Stow Municipal Judge Kim Hoover. This is Mr. Hoover. We've been in his courtroom previously. This was from a vehicular homicide sentencing. Here is what the accusations are and were believed by the Ohio Supreme Court. That's who has to remove a judge. Now, there were 16 criminal cases, and in those criminal cases, according to the Ohio Supreme Court, there were 48 violations. Here's what he was doing. These are all Code of Judicial Conduct violations. He had 2 defendants jailed for failure to pay court costs or fines. He then went on to threaten 14 others or coerce them with the threat of going to jail to make them pay their fines. Here was what was in the opinion written by the Ohio Supreme Court judge. Hoover leaned into the idea of a debtor's prison, unlawfully incarcerating or threatening to incarcerate individuals for the non-payment of fines without due process. Goes on to write, and unconstitutionally incarcerated or threatening incarcerated individuals for non-payment of court costs. Now, there is a way a judge can go after somebody who hasn't paid fines. This is not the way to do it, according to the Ohio Supreme Court. Now, in their finding, they said that the judge was trying to take the burden off of taxpayers in Stow, that it should be the defendants and the criminals paying their bills to run that court. That's simply not how it goes. I did call the municipal judge, the municipal court in Stow today. They said he did not show up and he will not be returning to their court. I also reached out to his bailiff to try and get a hold of the judge to get his reaction. We have not heard back as of yet.